We're going to talk about Leah Thomas because I'm sitting there in the middle of the night. I'm sitting there in the middle of the night after I've expressed myself in what I think is a thorough, thoughtful, and meaningful, and above all else, respectful way. I'm sitting up in the middle of the night like, am I going to get canceled for what I just said? Am I going to get an internet mob of people angry at what I said, how I expressed myself, and whatever? But as I'm thinking about it, I had a thought, and when I get into the Leah Thomas bit, remind me, people, it goes back to my high school wrestling, where one could choose to wrestle up a weight category, but you could never choose to wrestle down a weight category. So we're going to get there. Remind me if I forget that was my revelation in the middle of the night. Number 3 is Russell Brand. We've got to read that article. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. Okay. Let me see if I can get also some so what I wanted to do simultaneously was set up a live chat on Locals so that Locals could ask questions and that I could address them in real time. And let me do that right now. I was going to do that. Enable live stream. Oh, I don't know how to do it. Questions here for live stream now. Get your questions in and I will answer them. ! Sorry for the short notice. And let's just go like this. Yeah, I was going to try to do a screen share, but I don't want to get anybody potentially in trouble on Locals who might be a member or, follow us on Locals if they don't necessarily want the whole world knowing. So let me see. I'm going to do this and I'll get to questions from our Locals community and make sure to do that. I'm going to go pin that to the top of the Locals community. Done. All right. Russell Brand. My first pronunciation was correct. Good. Fox News. Thank you for reminding me. Putin won the free world. Hopefully now we'll be rid of... Okay, dude. Sorry. Sometimes I will bring up a chat without having read it, and then I cannot be blamed for what that chat says. We're talking Fox News because I haven't watched Fox News in a while. It was happenstance, the reason for which I started watching it just because it was on a TV that I couldn't really control. It's the funny thing about, like, when you haven't seen someone in a long time and when you see them again and you don't know if they've changed or you've changed, but they don't look the same anymore. Fox News talking about Russia and talking about Putin. When I saw this, it was identical, mutatis mutandis, to 4 years ago, CNN talking about Trump and Fox News. I'm going to get to it, but I don't know if Fox News has changed. I don't know if I have changed. I don't know if Fox News has always been the same, but I have now pulled away from it for a sufficient period of time that I can see it for the horse crap propaganda that it is. I've always given them something of a hard time because they've always been, maybe better than CNN, but still pretty bad. I was watching Janine Pirro, Jesse Waters, Greg Gutfeld. Man, I don't know if they've changed, if I've changed, if we both changed, if the world has changed, or if I'm like so far out of the matrix now, I can see it for what it is. The Freedom Convoy regrouped today in Toronto. Thank you for reminding me. I want to say this. They parked their rigs in a paid parking spots. The truckers are there, and the party is getting started. Follow live from the shed, Freedom. Thank you, Clearview Investigations, for reminding me. I was actually invited down to speak. I forgot to get back to somebody. Couldn't do it because of my mother-in-law's birthday, which we celebrated last night. But there is a protest now. There were rumors apparently that the protest was canceled. It's going to be another peaceful protest, so peaceful that they're paying for their parking spots. Live from the Shed was covering the Ottawa protest, and they are apparently covering the Toronto protest now. Live from the Shed, I had the founder, the Live from the Shed guy on. Was it this Wednesday or was it a week ago Wednesday? Recently. I had him on recently, along with no, it was this Wednesday, 5 times August, and no, it wasn't this Wednesday. It was last Wednesday. Whatever. It was within the last week and a half. This week we had Zot, who's live streaming down in the US at the convoy. And we had, why am I such an absolute buffoon? Jake Spinney, the veteran who's at the War Memorial. But okay, so there's a protest in Toronto. Live from the Shed is covering it. Zot, Travel Fund 69, I believe are in the States now, covering the convoy there in DC. Some interesting videos coming out of there. So go check them out, support them, follow them, and enable them, allow them to continue doing what they're doing, because we live in such a post-fact world. We live in a world where if you don't see it with your own eyes, you don't believe it. And sometimes even when you see it with your own eyes, you still don't believe it. When you're relying on the likes of CBC, CTV, Fox News, CNN, these people are the purveyors of the truth, if only because they're just showing you what's actually happening. Unedited, no spin. This was, I was accused by W5 of providing streams with no filter. I was faulted for live streaming and providing information, disseminating information, conducting interviews with no filter. Imagine that's what MSM, state-funded MSM, thinks is a bug and not a feature. So they're doing it now. Great Gutfeld used to be great on Red Eye. It's funny, I remember them being great on things where I guess they didn't have, I don't know. I don't know what to chalk it up to, but it was like waking up and not recognizing who you're waking up next to is how long you slept. Okay, good. They're live now. Awesome. So, anyways, we'll get to our. We'll start with our stream here. Let's just go to. We're going to start with the Leah Thompson NCAA women's victory that Leah had. I think it was yesterday, making the rounds, and the degree to which. Oops, share screen. The degree to which it's become so impossible just to have discussions on this, because I'm certain that I will be accused of something bad just by virtue of the fact that I'm sharing this interview that Leah gave after the race.
Leah, how did that performance measure up to your expectations coming into this meet tonight?
I didn't have a whole lot of expectations for this meet. I was just happy to be here.
I don't know if that's a heckler in the background. There's someone screaming.
You've undoubtedly
seems awful
been
quiet.
Under the spotlight over the past few months. How have you been dealing with that and reasoning with everything?
I try to ignore it as much as I can. I try to focus on my swimming,
okay,
what I need to do to get ready for my races, and just try to block out everything else.
What did that race mean to you?
It means the world to be here.
So I mean, this is the interview. We've heard it. I'm going to stop this. I'm going to stop sharing. What's amazing is that there can be. Zuby put out today a tweet basically to the effect that how has the minority been allowed to dictate the conversation for the majority when the majority, when it's not to say that there should be a rule, a tyranny of the majority, but one cannot even have an open discussion because a vocal minority silences opposing discourse or demonizes opposing discourse on an issue that some people think is so black and white that it doesn't merit discussion. But on the other side, and if anyone says that this is a black and white issue, this is a biological issue that is clearly producing inequities, their discourse is stifled, shut down, whatever. And this is an interesting thing, by the way. You have to double check everything you ever see on Earth. There was a photo going around, and I saw it on Reddit. Look, you guys you got to see this, because this is quite something. Let me just make sure that we're seeing the same thing together here. I saw a photo on the social medias, and I was like, oh, that photo looks interesting, but that photo could very easily be photoshopped. And when I Googled it, okay, so we got this post on Reddit, and just to illustrate exactly what I'm talking about, open, meaningful, thoughtful discourse, even if some people find it hard to have, being shut down. Photo from the podium as trans athlete Leah Thomas wins first place in the NCAAs. Okay, we've got 2,500, for anybody who doesn't know, 2,500 upvote thingies, I think, on Reddit. This post has been removed by the moderators of Damn That's Interesting. Moderators remove posts from feeds for a variety of reasons, including keeping communities safe, civil, and true to their purpose. So once this video goes up, I don't know what the rules are for the subreddit Damn That's Interesting. But for anybody who doesn't know how Reddit works, it's an aggregate. They have these sub communities, which they call subreddits. Oh, like R fishing, R go-karting, and they've got some very what's the word? Not eclectic, but very specific subreddits. I don't know what the rules are of Damn That's Interesting, but it would seem that this one picked up a lot of traction on Damn That's Interesting before the moderators or the people or the gatekeepers of, you know, what goes up on any given platform, before they said, we're taking this down. Now, I thought maybe they took it down because I thought maybe this photo was photoshopped, because it looks a little, you know, for anyone who wants to, you know, grab an image that's worth 1,000 words, an image that defines a moment, that defines an era, that defines an issue. Seeing Leah Thomas, okay, now Leah is on a platform that is 2 stumps up from the 3, so there's a remarkable height difference, but I believe there is a height difference in real life regardless. This image of Leah Thomas in first place, and then 3 other swimmers standing together as far away as possible from Leah Thomas, could be a very symbolic, a very impactful image in this debate that the world is currently having. And I think, okay, it looks a little too convenient. I need to make sure it's real. And so, you know, people out there, you want to take 5 minutes to avoid a world of embarrassment and a world of discrediting everything you might have spent the last 7 years trying to build in terms of credibility. Take the 2 minutes to use a tool called TinEye, or Google Reverse Image Search, which I did, and which revealed that this photo is legit. Okay, so hold on, I'll get the article. Okay, here we go. I believe it's this one. I believe it's this article here, and it was the Insider. So this is from the Insider. As Olympic silver medalist who lost to Leah Thomas at NCAA championships said she's, quote, proud to support trans athletes. As everyone should. As everyone should be proud to support trans athletes, male athletes, female. I mean, everyone should support everybody to the extent that, you know, the behavior you're supporting is not bad. So no question, we all agree on this. Now the question is, how do you support trans athletes without penalizing or not supporting biological female athletes who might arguably, if you believe in science, be at something of a biological disadvantage to a biological male trans athlete to female, maybe. So we all agree, support trans athletes. If you don't agree with that, then, you know, we can agree to disagree. But I think we all agree, support trans athletes, support biological female athletes, support athletes. How do you do it? How do you support one group without trumping another? All this to say, though, by the way, there's the photo. So it's a legit photo. But now reading this article, I saw something interesting. University of Pennsylvania swimmer and newly anointed national champion Leah Thomas found herself at the center of America's debate over transgender athletes' participation in women's sports. Okay, we go into the thing. Let's just go here. One day after finishing 3rd behind Thomas and Virginia Cavaliers star Emma Wyant, Sullivan penned an op-ed for Newsweek in which she explained, quote, why I'm proud to support trans athletes like Leah Thomas. Fine. Quote, all athletes, including transgender athletes, deserve to be respected and included exactly as we are. End quote. Sullivan wrote, throughout my life, swimming has enabled me to learn so much, both in and out of the pool, and transgender athletes should not be excluded from this opportunity. We all agree on that. The question is, where and in what capacity should they be included in that, and under what rules? Because nobody should be excluded from competitive sports, period. Setting aside people who break the rules and you know, do steroids, whatever. So we all agree on that. The question is the how now. But she said something else. This is Sullivan who said something else. Leah Thomas has been unfairly targeted for just that, for being who she is, a transgender woman, Sullivan wrote. Like anyone else in this sport, Leah has trained diligently to get to where she is and has followed all of the rules and guidelines put before her. This is true. Like anyone else in this sport, Leah doesn't win every time. Fine, that was not the part that I found interesting. And when she does, she deserves, like anyone else in this sport, to be celebrated for her hard-won success, not labeled a cheater simply because of her identity. And this is the part where, in the debate, people are fudging the terms. This is where, in the debate, people are confounding the terms, which is actually exacerbating the debate and not actually leading to any means of resolving the debate. Because identity is not the issue when it comes to sports; it's biology, and that is the crux. To pull out a rock climbing term, that's the crux of this climb here. Confounding identity with biology. Nobody should be denied equal participation to the extent that they follow the rules. Leah here, by all accounts, and from what I understand, did follow the rules that were set forth in terms of not exceeding a certain level of testosterone after Leah's 1 year transition of testosterone suppression. Leah followed all the rules, from what I can tell. The question is whether or not the rules are just unfair for biological females to allow biological males transitioning to female, even if they abide by these rules that they've set, to compete. The question is whether or not the rules are fair for biological females. But the issue is, to me, that Leah, to the extent that the rules precluded Leah from competing in women's sports, it wouldn't be because of identity. It would be because of biology. An individual can identify as whatever they want. The question is whether or not biology is procuring an unfair advantage that had hitherto been recognized by all sport leagues, by all science. I mean, this goes into this now. Someone, I don't know if you reminded me. Let me stop sharing here. That was the interesting thing. So, in determining whether or not that image was a legit image, I stumbled across that article. The image is legit. Decipher what you will from that image. But that article, I think, highlights the issue here, that people are confounding identity with biology in terms of saying when trans individuals are being discriminated against, or when they're being denied their identity. Wrestling. There's a reason why there's weight classes in boxing, fighting, Greco-Roman wrestling. UFC didn't have weight classes, by the way. This was another thing I wanted to pull up, but I don't want to get copy strike. UFC is exquisitely demanding and stringent in their rules. Back in the early days of the UFC, there were no weight categories, and there was this one fight. Someone's going to correct me in the chat because I always mix up the names. It was I think it was a 200-pound fighter fighting a 600-pound boxer. Someone in the chat, let me know who it is. I always forget the names. And it was like the most outrageous thing visually, but it ended up with the smaller guy pounding was he 600 or 800 pounds? It was like one of those things where it was you'd say it was unfair, except the smaller guy won. But typically that's not how it happens. You know, typically the UFC heavyweights, not ultra heavyweight, they will always beat the best welterweight. They will always beat them. It's just it's physics, it's muscle mass, it's biology. It is what it is. And you cannot deny it. That's why they have weight classes. Now, I never disagreed with a lower weight class fighting up. GSP did it. You want to accept that challenge and you want to say, okay, I accept that I'm at a physiological disadvantage to fighting a weight class up, but I'm going to do it for the challenge. I want to do it to show that skill can sometimes overcome, well, I should say skill can sometimes overcome skill and biology, because the reason why it's a challenge to fight up a weight class is because you know that all things being equal, the heavier weight class wins. You know, at that level, you want to do it, more power to you, and it's quite a challenge. And that's why, you know, fighters holding multiple titles in different weight classes, it's quite an accomplishment because not everybody can do it. And when I was wrestling in high school, sometimes there would be too many people wrestling in the 155 weight category, and there wouldn't be anybody in the 165 weight category. And so I had the option, and I often took it, to fight up a weight class, to wrestle up a weight class. There's no problem there. But you intuitively and obviously, you never let the 165 who weighs in at 165 fight down a weight class unless the lower class agrees to it, in which case it's not the 165 fighting down, it's the 155 fighting up. And so it won't read it. Thank you for the super chat. You know, fighting up a weight class by choice for the challenge, knowing the disadvantage, is one thing. But nobody lets weight classes fight down, period. And there's a number of reasons. To some point, or to some extent, it's actually unsafe, because you will have people who are physically, biologically bigger and can just impose more damage on someone who is smaller, frailer, and has less muscle mass. It's just common sense. And so, you know, in this category, it was one of the reasons why, whoever remembers, let me see, did I pull this up? It was one of the reasons why I actually ultimately lost respect for Vijay Singh. It was one of the, I used to love, first of all, I used to love watching, playing golf, and then, you know, you get married, you have kids, and you don't have 5 hours a day to go piss away hitting a ball through the woods. I used to love golf, and I used to love Vijay Singh. And I remember the specific day I lost respect for Vijay Singh. And it was when he refused to play if Annika Sorenstam were to compete in the men's league of golf, the PGA, not the LPGA. And I hope this was the incident. I thought it was when Annika Sorenstam wanted, when she made cuts to compete with the men, and Vijay Singh. Oh, that. So that's right. She made cut. I remember the tournament, and Vijay said, "If I'm paired with her, I'm not going to play. I'm not going to play in the tournament." Listen to this. This was when I lost all respect for Vijay Singh. It was 20 years ago, and I still haven't forgotten it. Singh says he'll withdraw if paired with Sorenstam. Quote, "What is she going to prove by playing? It's ridiculous. She's the best woman golfer in the world, and I want to emphasize woman. We have our team for men, and they have their tour. She's taking a spot from someone in the field." I disagree with that on a great many levels. She's not taking the spot if she made the cut. She made the cut, therefore that is her spot. And when Vijay Singh came out and said, "I will not play if I'm paired with her," and I looked at Vijay and I said, Vijay, not long ago, people were saying the exact same thing among men based on the color of their skin. And they were saying they were using the exact same rationale, Vijay. And now you're saying this to exclude women, where 20 years ago, 30 years ago, they were using these same reasoning, the same rationale to exclude people with certain pigment in their skin from playing in certain leagues, playing in certain clubs. They have their clubs, separate but equal. You stayed yours. If Annika Sorenstam made the cut, she didn't take anyone's place. She earned her own. So it's not a question of keeping leagues separate. It's a question of respecting and acknowledging that there are just fundamental differences by and large, and it only gets more accentuated as you get to the upper echelon of the cream of the crop of those respective talent pools. Never forget Vijay Singh when he said that. What a flipping hypocrite. "I hope she misses the cut," Singh said in an interview with the Associated Press after his runner-up finish at Wachovia Championship. Why? Because she doesn't belong out here. The sheer lack of insight and audacity for Vijay Singh in particular to say she doesn't belong here, when a lot of people said something very similar about other people that might have included Vijay Singh and others. 3 or 4 years ago, I compared high school boys track and field records to women's world records. Yeah, I saw there's an article out there. I mean, you can find it. There was the game of the under 16 men's team playing the women's soccer team. It shouldn't be controversial to acknowledge these things. But lo and behold, did I miss this chat here? Viva, Fry, I'm announcing that I've officially given up on humanity and I'm rooting for the meteorite. God bless. This is Doug Murray. Did I miss that? I think I missed that. Doug, let me see if I can bring that up. I say ordinarily these things are not controversial, but then you get people purporting to be doctors on the interwebs, making it controversial. I'll get to the take. I'll get to the take in a second. Viva, okay, so I got that one. And then we got Waffles McGallagher. You said, how do we support one group without penalizing another? The whole problem here is the... Come on, man. You're going to get me in trouble. I did not read that one before bringing it up. Do I have to read this one? I'm going to read it. And if it's terrible, I'm not going to read it. Okay. I'm not even sure I get this. Well, hold on. Russia's Systema instructor said, the 2x2 area you occupy will be soiled by war eventually, so long as men exist. Americans say nobody can invade the U.S. Which mindset is easier to blitzkrieg? Okay. Sorry, I got distracted with the super chats and the meteorite coming for us all. Ordinarily, these things, the reason for which men's leagues and women's leagues were set up, the reason for which weight categories were set up, were not controversial until they became controversial. Let me see. Where is this? Oh, it was in Twitter. How am I going to find it? Oh, I'm going to go here. I'm going to share this. I'm going to go back to, give me 1 second, peeps. Twitter /the Viva Fry. Someone who said it last night, and I just I don't know who's a doctor and who's not. I think that some people are not doctors, despite saying they are. And I'm not trying to put anybody on blast for any. You put an opinion on the interwebs with the title doctor, and look, you're inviting a response, and I have a response which is not mean. But by the way, nothing better than having a 20-tweet thread with yourself. But it's like the poop storm on the wall. Just splat so much poop on the wall you can't pick out individual particles. but 2 of 20 of this thread. And B, it is not true that women will never win again. This narrative is profoundly paternalistic and keeps women small. Where do you even go with that? Some might argue that biological males defeating biological females at women's sports is profoundly paternalistic and keeps women small. You have to, it is not true that women will never, of course it's not true that women will never win again. First of all, it's very interesting here that this could be a cancelable offense to identify women as distinct from trans individuals who are biological males that transition to women. It's an interesting, the conclusion is baked in her statement and she doesn't even realize it. To the extent that it's biological women, that you're not always going to have a trans athlete in a competition. So of course it's not true that women will never win again, but it's an interesting thing that you acknowledge this person acknowledges women in the debate of male to female trans people competing in women's sports. Profoundly paternalistic seems to have the same distinction of gender here, or social construct and whatever. But I think if you asked the biological female athletes, the ones who don't feel what's the word, suppressed into silence, I think if you ask them, and the ones who do speak out disagree with this, by and large, because of biology and physiology, which hitherto had never been much up for debate. So the question is, how do you reconcile these diverging interests here? My theory, and I like I said it yesterday during the stream, my theory, at some point people have to acknowledge the consequences of decisions. A biological male who chooses to transition to female because that's how they feel, more power to them. And they should not be mocked. They should not be discriminated against. They should be able to live their lives in as much as anybody who chooses to practice religion, chooses to get an occupation, chooses to do whatever to themselves that hurts nobody around them, to the extent that they should all be respected. The question is, there is biology nonetheless that even if they meet the requirements imposed by the NCAA as to being below a certain level of testosterone, by mere virtue of the fact that the NCAA recognizes you have to do that, they're acknowledging biological differences in the first place. And my ultimate bottom line, if you want to wrestle up a weight category, if Annika Sorenstam wants to play in a field where she will not have a biological advantage to the cream of the crop on the other side, people should feel free to wrestle up. But when they have a biological advantage, they should not feel free to wrestle down. And if they decide to transition and they say, that's what I need to do in order to be me and to be complete in life, you deserve respect, full stop. You should also bear in mind that you'll have to live with the consequences of your decisions and say, because of how you feel as an individual, despite biology, you do not get to go in and trump the rights of women who fought long and hard for their rights, which now people think is a sign of women's rights to ignore biological differences, muscle mass, testosterone, all the other. They want to ignore them while setting limitations that implicitly acknowledge there's a biological difference. Anyhow, so that's it. I would love to have Leah Thompson on the channel for a live stream. I mean, I know the chat would be, I would not be able to bring up the chat. It would take a great amount of courage for anybody to come into the internet environment, which is necessarily, I won't say hostile, but it's unforgiving and it's unfriendly and it's anonymous, which empowers people to, it empowers people to say things that they might not otherwise say to people's faces, but they might also say it to people's faces. There are people out there who have different methods of interacting with humans.